Hello, you've found Why We Are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and on the other side of the screen, of course, we're Zooming, is Alison Vanden Herik. Call her Allie. Welcome, Allie.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're so glad to have you. You're down in San Diego.
I am.
San Diego area, and we came across you because one of the guys in our church, good old Nate Hoover, he told us about your book. And so I got it, called The Shortest Sleep. And my wife, Katie, and I have been reading through it. We love the book, and we had to get you on our program. Very simple.
Great news. Praise God.
So, Allie, this is the first of two programs, and we're going to be talking in the second program about your book and how you get into that. I don't know how it'll progress, who knows, but so we want to just find out about you a little bit. Tell us about you. Where were you born?
I was actually born here in San Diego, which is
Okay.
a rare thing. We have so many immigrants. Third generation. And I grew up here, although I took many trips to other places and always returned to San Diego.
Okay.
It's hard to find a much better place.
Sure. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your family, your parents and grandparents and so on.
Well, my family is mainly from San Diego, although I do have grandparents that came from Nashville on my dad's side. But on my mom's side, they came, I think, 3 generations ago, and they built a brick company here using the clay of the cliffs in San Diego. So a lot of the downtown buildings in San Diego actually were my grandfather's brick company.
Really?
One of the buildings, built into Petco Park, that's still there, is made from his brick. So I always like to say I have my ancestry is in the soil of San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I grew up with 2 sisters. I have a twin sister and a younger sister, 2 years younger. And my parents were extremely different, pretty much the most opposite personalities you could ever have. Loved them both dearly. But my father became a Christian when I was 2 years old, and my mother did not follow along. So that was a big issue in our family growing up. So that's
reminds me of my family. My dad became a Christian when I was 15, and my mother remained a non-Christian.
It is a difficult situation. Yeah,
Yes,
I would definitely caution people from getting into that situation. If you have a choice, obviously my father became a Christian after they were married, so it was just very difficult growing up. Our family really avoided that topic, the topic of God and meaning of life, anything having to do with philosophy. It's like you could cut the air with a knife. It was so, the stress and
Sure.
we were just, it was not a good situation. If you wanted your child to know Jesus, in my house, it was a very difficult job for my father. He would try to hint at it and explain to me how you just ask Jesus into your heart. And I'd be like, Dad, don't talk to me about that. So it was a tough, but that's one of the benefits, I think, writing this book. Now that I am a Christian, I understand what it's like to be a non-believer and to be in that situation where religion is not a topic you really want to discuss.
Right. You went to high school in San Diego then?
I did. I went to the Bishop School, which is a college prep school. It's a pretty challenging school, so I was very glad that I had the opportunity to excel there for 6 years, 7th through 12th grade, and that's what allowed me to get into Stanford. So I was really grateful for the opportunity to have a springboard to get in even more challenging university experience.
In high school, Allie, what were your favorite subjects?
That was hard for me because I just love all subjects. Like I say in the book, I love both history and science. So it comes out, I think, in that. And then I just love writing. So between science, history, writing, pretty much every subject, languages, I absolutely love learning languages too. So I was grateful to not really have one area that I wanted to focus on. It's been a little challenging deciding what I want to do for a living with that type of, cross subject interest, but it's perfect for what is writing a book, which has kind of been a lifelong dream, because it talks about history, it talks about science, it talks about philosophy, and it's also,
Yes,
of
it
course,
does. Yeah, you cover the board, Allie, a lot.
yeah,
Did
I have
you
a rare background.
did you get involved in any sports when you were in high school?
Yeah, I did. I was well, I was trying to decide between tennis, which I love, and field hockey, but all my friends were playing field hockey, so that pretty much went. They were the same season, so I just played field hockey. But you can't
Okay.
go out and pick up a game of field hockey, so it's been a little frustrating for me later in life.
Yeah, right. You can't. Yeah,
Up
you're
to
not going to
tennis.
do that.
I've
Yeah.
also been interested in running, so I've run, I think, 9 marathons now, starting
Really,
out.
9 marathons.
Yes, so a
Good
little bit.
grief.
I think it's kind of like the book as well. I'm weaving my book in probably way too much here, but I'm kind of a long distance person. I'm slow and steady wins the race. I'm by no means fast. So I love the marathoning, and writing the
This
book
is
was probably the hardest
your
of all.
book is a big fat book.
It would have been twice as long. I had to really force myself to complete.
Really? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it was.
Okay.
Yep,
So then,
as short as I could make it. That was the shortest.
wow,
The
it's
shortest.
not short, and I'm glad it's not short. I love the length of it. What I've been telling everybody in our church, uh, I just got 6 more copies. I've got 10 more copies should arrive today or tomorrow. And what I want is everybody to take a week per chapter,
Yes.
highlight, go back through, and then go to the questions at the end of each chapter. And I think it gives as close to a theological seminary education as you can find today, and only the cost of a book.
Oh, thank you. That's really
I know
wonderful.
that's what I got. That's what I publish, and I tell everybody this. It's so valuable. Now, okay, now you went to Stanford. You went to Stanford. What was your major, Allie?
Well, that was the tough one for me. Actually, I kind of knew from the age of, I think, 11 that I wanted to be a doctor. And my reasoning was, what can I do to help people? And I was just such a good girl. I was the little Pharisee, actually, looking back on it. And what can I do that will help people, and I can make a lot of money and that will take advantage of what I know? And I was good at science. So that was kind of the default. Okay, then I'm going to be a doctor. So I never really thought about anything else. And so at Stanford, I was pre-med, and I finished all of the subject matter my first 2 years, actually. So I took my third year off, went to Italy, and studied art history. And I even had an Italian fashion class, which I thought was so decadent. And I didn't go through Stanford. That was one of the things. I wanted to just relax. So I didn't want to have any requirements on me besides just passing, basically. And I came back from that experience and realized maybe I shouldn't be a doctor. I decided to change my major. Actually, I didn't change my major. I kept biology, but I decided just to take courses in business and technology. So I ended up deciding I really wanted to go into international business. So that changed.
So you got an MBA at Stanford?
I did my MBA at Berkeley. So I kind of went over to
Berkeley. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people not like me very much because I had both a Stanford bumper sticker and a Berkeley bumper sticker, but learned I might not have either.
There was a conflict there.
There was a little conflict, but yeah, I absolutely loved business school. And between the two, business school, instead of going to medical school, I decided to, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I ran into a teacher from Bishop's, from the school I went to in La Jolla. And they said they were hiring teachers and would I be interested? So I ended up teaching for a few years between Stanford and Berkeley, which I think has been probably the most valuable experience for me, because it really helped me understand how to frame information, how to present it, and how to work with what I taught teenagers. But it's always going to be invaluable. If you can work with teenagers, you work with a lot of people. But anyway, so that was my early experience.
Okay. Religious background, I send out this information gathering form, and I've got yours in front of me. You're one of the few people that actually send one back.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
I don't want
my wife, Katie, and I, we've been reading it the past couple of days. And I know that your dad became a Christian when you were 2. Your mother didn't follow along. So did you go to any kind of church at all, Sunday school wise, growing up?
Well, that was difficult. My dad really wanted to bring the three of us, three girls, to church with him, and we did a few times. I remember that thinking, I actually have a very distinct memory. We were in the balcony of a Baptist church, and I was looking down, and they had the college group. I'll go up in front. I don't know if they were going to be prayed for or something. And I was looking at these young people, which to me they seemed really old, but and I probably was around 7 or 8 at the time. And I remember thinking, why would somebody want to be a Christian? I mean, who are these people? They kind of look normal. Like, what are they doing in church? And I just know that's how I felt about Christianity from a very young age, was that it was just kind of a bunch of fake people who wanted to have a crutch to live their life, I guess, a little easier. And that over the years continued. I remember there was a sorority sister of mine at Stanford who was a Christian. When I found out she was a Christian, I'm like, wait, she can't be a Christian. She's really intelligent and she's really fun. I don't get it. What's the deal? So that was my attitude about Christians. And even though I loved my father, I knew he was a fun, intelligent man. I just thought it was a crazy thing that he did. So we resisted going to church. And my mom supported us. She's like, don't make them go to church if they don't want to. So it didn't last very long.
Okay.
But I did go to school at the Bishop School, which is 7 through 12. It's currently 6 through 12, but they were Episcopalian school. So it's more just in name now, because I wouldn't say that they are serious about teaching religion. But at the time I went there, we did have to take some Bible classes. And
Okay.
but it was just a stories. It didn't mean much to me. I just figured it was just a bunch of fictional stories at that point.
So, okay, so no real Christianity for you early years. How about in high school? Any contact with Christians while you were in high school?
Very little. Very
little.
Like I said, I went to a quote unquote Christian school, but most people were not Christians. I'm trying to think if I even knew somebody that went to church. I don't think I even knew anybody that went to church at that time.
Okay.
It's so interesting because it's funny, that was my exposure to Christianity, but it really wasn't, because I don't remember ever really having a conversation about what true Christianity is. So until college, I think.
So your first real contact with the gospel is presented by Christians. When did that begin, Allie?
Well, of course, my father was always praying for me and trying to explain it to me, but I would always give him a cold shoulder, because it was just like, Dad, I don't want to talk about it. It was very uncomfortable. And now I look back and I felt so sorry for him, because I as a Christian now, I just want my kids to understand it. But he did say something early on when I was very young. He said, just remember, you can always ask Jesus into your heart and you'll have eternal life. And I just remember thinking, into my heart, what does that mean? But later, when I became a Christian, I remember him telling me that. So I just encourage people to just let people know, even young kids. Obviously, you told me that when I was really young, invite Jesus into your heart, and whatever. I didn't understand the details, but it came back later, and I realized that that's what it is. It's just faith. It's trusting in the Lord and his record, his work on your behalf.
Okay.
Living the perfect life and dying the death we deserve. So I guess growing up, that's pretty much the only time I really talked about it, was my dad explaining that to me.
Now let's move to when you first then began to be confronted with a real Christian witness. What's that story, Allie?
Oh, it's a really interesting one. So after business school, you go into the working world, and you have your idols, which I didn't think of them as idols back then, but the nice car and the money and the whatever, the boyfriend, and just things that people usually find meaning in their lives. And one by one, they just were disappointing me. The job disappointed me. The car disappointed me. I thought it was great. And then like a few months later, I'm like, I want a different car. Things like that. You know that over time, you're like, what is this all about? Am I just going to work to make money to buy something that I don't really want to have anyway? So those kinds of, I don't think I really thought it out at the time, but looking back, it's making me wonder, what is the point? So I remember a woman, I went back to teaching, so that I was like, I can't do the corporate life. So I went back to teaching at Bishop's, And one of the my colleagues at Bishop's said, I'd like to set you up with this man who is really religious. And I don't know if you like that. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll try. And so it was interesting because he turned out to be just a wonderful Christian man. And I'm sure from his point of view, he was not too excited about the fact that I was not Christian, but I'm really grateful to him because he really kind of allowed me to see what it was to be a Christian. And at the time it was more like, oh, I just want to have a nice family and, you know, a nice relationship. We'd go to church and I'd see all these nice families, little kids that were obedient. And I just was like, oh, it just seems so wonderful. So it was certainly not for the right reasons. An exposure that I hadn't had before. And that was really short relationship. It was just a few months that we were friends and went out. So I think that was the first time I really started thinking, maybe I should check this out. And then within that same year, I had organized an art history tour of Europe for students at Bishop's and their parents. And we were in Rome. We finished up the trip, and I was going to travel a little bit more with a friend of mine. And so she and I were still in Rome, and I happened to notice that there was a Bible. Actually, it was just the New Testament, but it was the New Testament in the side table of my hotel room. And it was printed in English, Italian, and Spanish, I believe. I actually still have I stole it. I hope that's okay. Yeah, I think you're supposed to take those. So I actually was really fascinated. I'm like, oh, I can remind myself of vocabulary. And I love languages. I'd use my love of languages to actually pick up the Bible and start reading it. So I would read it in Italian and then switch over to the verse in English. And long story short, I ended up just reading it in English. And we traveled up. I remember we were in the south of France, in Nice, and we were sitting on the beach, and I was reading my New Testament in the south of France. And I just remember my friend looking at me like, what the heck are you doing laying on the beach reading the New Testament? But it was in Nice that I finished finished Revelation. And God convicted me of my sin, especially my sin of thinking that I didn't need a savior. So it was then that I remembered my dad saying, just ask Jesus into your heart. And I did. So that was amazing. That was in 1998, July 4th. I believe it was July 4th because I remember in France, so they had all these.
Yeah, that's what you have down here.
I'm like, this isn't America. Why do you? Anyway, so it's pretty neat. I like how God used different things, but just that experience of picking up God's word and reading it and it just coming alive to me. Even though I'd read it a lot of times in high school for classes. So it was.
So this happens while you're in Europe. Yeah. So you come back. So what did you do about that then?
Well, I remember sending my dad an email, and I'm pretty sure that email existed in 1998, but I definitely know it was an email. And I told him, I said, Dad, I think I just became a Christian. And so, yeah, he was like, oh, great. That's great. He didn't want to make too big a deal out of it because he probably was like, I'm not really sure if this is true. It seems a little too good to be true. So when I got back, he invited me to his church here in San Diego, and everyone was coming up to me and saying, congratulations, this is so exciting. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, really? It's not that big a deal. But obviously it was. And I didn't realize until later how big a deal it was. And someone immediately, a friend of my father's, invited me to join BSF, which was a Bible study fellowship group. And that was in 1990. So I remember going to that. It was the book of Romans we studied that year, which was perfect because it was like exactly laid out everything. Just my own self-righteousness was just glaring, and the need to not boast and to recognize that my sins don't have to be these terrible things, but the sin of like trusting in my own good deeds for salvation is just as bad. So that I really came to really, God used that one year to really clarify what the gospel was. And I, from then on, I was just about to turn 30.
What, 30?
So 30. Okay. So my dad had been praying for me for 28 years. So okay. I just looked back, I'm like, okay, just keep praying for those kids that don't want to have anything to do with Jesus. God is faithful, and I'm so grateful. I don't know if I mean, where would I be? I'm sure, obviously God can save me, even if my dad wasn't a Christian. But just knowing that I had someone praying for me for 28
Right.
years, and it's funny because my current church, there's some people that used to go to my dad's previous church, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, we were praying for you for years and years and years in the small group." So it's really cool to hear from other people that, yeah, my dad was actually praying for me. So yeah, and from that point on, it's been now whatever, almost 23 years. I have been just like on fire for the Lord. I mean, I've had my days when I'm just not, but I just love the Lord and I want everyone to know him. And it burdens me so much when people don't realize that there's this God that just wants to have a relationship with them, and they just breaks my heart. So I definitely have that in my heart. I just wanted, and that's the inspiration, obviously, for the book.
Bible Study Fellowship, BSF. I love that.
I do, and I did.
I have a very close friend who is a BSF leader up in Sonoma County, and yeah, it's a great thing. Allie, I always ask people, were you baptized?
Oh, yes. Well, as a baby, I was baptized.
Yes.
And then my dad, he's so funny. He's like, well, you were baptized as a baby. You don't need to be baptized again. And so it's, I'm not really sure where I stand on that issue. My current church baptizes babies, but it doesn't save them. It's just welcomes them into the covenant relationship. But he's sure I was baptized when I first became a Christian when I was 30. So that was in Mission Bay in San Diego with the church I was attending at that time.
Okay,
so
Mission Bay, San Diego. Okay.
I'm covered both ways, though.
Well, yeah, I'm a Baptist, so I always think being baptized is important.
Once you're a believer,
important for us to do. It's our first sermon.
I love that. I do. I love it.
It's a first sermon. I'm doing this. So when you became a Christian, how about your friends? Any reactions from them?
Well, it's funny because they probably didn't know, because a lot of my friends from high school and college I hadn't really kept in touch with, except we'd see each other every once in a while and we would talk about other things. So it was pretty easy to not let them know that I was a Christian, and I probably should have been more forward. I just know that it's not always effective to be forward. So I usually am pretty private about that with my friends. But once social media came along in the early 2000s, I think it was around 2007 that I was on Facebook, my friends thought I had freaked out because, when you're sharing on social media, this is what's important to me. I want people to know what I believe and what I love. And of course, sharing prayers and sharing Bible verses. And it became apparent to them at that point that, wow, yeah, Alex definitely got off the deep end here. So but it also is great because it gave me an opportunity to share with them. But I'm not sure how many of them follow me anymore on Facebook. I don't know if they hide my posts, but it's definitely been an issue. A lot of friends have stopped talking to me.
Okay.
Which is really painful, but
yeah, I know. So in the next program, we've only got about 5 minutes. Okay. Before we end this program, and we're going to get back and we'll be talking a lot about your book. But what happened in your life, family-wise, between then and now?
Okay, between the time I became a Christian and now.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely went from 0 to like 100 miles per hour in my Christianity within that first year. And then I had a job after teaching again. I went back into the corporate world and had a job where my colleagues knew that I was Christian and I was working with them, and I would share with them, and they knew when I was, if I was doing a fast or something like that. It was just, I felt like it was my obligation to let people know who I was and then shine the light of Jesus. Soon after that, I met my husband, who is a fellow Christian. And soon after that, we had 2 little babies. So a lot has happened in the last 20 years. And I'm so grateful that my husband and I are both believers, so we can have conversations without yelling at each other when it comes to God. And
Yeah.
my kids will be blessed as a result. And yeah, it's wonderful. My kids are now teenagers, 16 and 14.
16
And
and 14. Wow.
yeah, so it's been nice as they grow up to have those conversations with them. And the book also is an opportunity for me to explain why it's not, like a lot of people would say it's a sign that you're not smart if you believe in these fairy tales from the Bible. I'm like, no, you actually have very good rational reasons to do so. So having those discussions with my children has been wonderful, and one of the main reasons that I wrote the book.
Okay, good. All right, Allie. Well, we've got a few minutes. As I say, we want to get into your book. We're gonna do it. So right now, are you active in a local congregation?
Yes. I attend New Life I don't know if you want to know the name of my church, but I will tell you. New Life Presbyterian Church here in Escondido. And I have been there. We actually went there when my daughter was just a few months old. She's 14 now, so 14 years. Have been involved in women's ministries and in their missions group. I'm very much interested in missions. That's one of my just my heart loves. I'm just the idea, traveling around the world telling people about Jesus. And let's see what else. I done a lot of Sunday school classes, so I can use my love of teaching there. Absolutely love teaching. So it's I think the teaching about the Lord is what God gifted me with. Okay. And so between Sunday school and writing this book, it's been covering all boards, all bases.
Sounds good. I know that you say Presbyterian. I got my doctorate at San Francisco Theological Seminary, Presbyterian, USA. So
got it.
So yeah.
Yes, no, we're PCA. So it's a little. The reason that I went to PCA is because when we lived in New York City, there's a lot of little details in my life I haven't told you, but my husband is a major. When we lived in New York City, we went to Tim Keller's church in New York.
Tim Keller.
Tim Keller. Yes. Yeah. I remember thinking, this guy just breaks it down, and he's got the gospel like down to a nutshell. He can explain it so well. And so we stuck with PCA when we moved back to San Diego.
Right. Thanks. We love Tim Keller. One of our preachers here is a big fan, and every time he preaches, we hear a little bit of Tim Keller.
Yes, and that's our current pastor. He has a lot of Tim Keller-esque type of the style in preaching. So I think that's one of the reasons we like him too.
Right.
Great man.
Well, Allie, we're gonna wrap up this part,
okay.
And then we're gonna start in a few preliminaries, and we're gonna get into the book and so on. So anyway, I appreciate this. We'll take about a 5-10 minute break, and we'll be back. Okay. So you've been watching Why We Are Christians. We were talking with Allie Vanden Herik. It took me quite a while to be able to pronounce her name right, but I think I got it now. But anyway, we got a really terrific program coming up about her book, The Shortest Leap. So be watching. She's coming back. So long.